Joko, can you tell if an offensive line is working in camp, or is it something you actually have to see game film? I'm sure there's things you see now, but is it something you have to wait till games to really know if they're clicking?
I think you could see a lot of things in practice. Obviously, I think you can identify a lot of things just from years of experience doing it and knowing what it should look like. I think the biggest challenge you always have in fall camp, and this is, I think, is our biggest, like as we're battling through this, is there's not a lot of relative comparison that you've played with on a field in SEC football, right? And that's where, if you had just lost the O-line and you knew what the D-line was, or you just lost the D-line and you knew what the O-line was, we've got two groups battling that are all relative unknowns, right? And so I think until you get to September 5th and start rolling it out there against competitive people, it'll be a little bit of a wait and see.
We'll go to the right, Alex.
Just what was kind of your evaluation of the scrimmage this weekend? Things you thought you guys did well, and things you're trying to talk with your guys about continuing to improve as fall camp continues?
Yeah, I thought, typical first scrimmage in fall camp. I thought operationally we did good. I think one of the things about the way we run camp is we start operationally from day one, moving at a pace and a speed that is game-like. And so, that hopefully means that there's not a big shock when we get in there for scrimmage one, and there wasn't. And so I thought both sides of the ball functioned operationally at a really, really good level. I thought there was inconsistency both sides of the ball. I think that's naturally what happens in a first scrimmage. And so now you've got a marker of where you are, and now you've got 2 weeks to really grind through to kind of get everything where you need it to be for the season to start.
We'll come back over to the left, Olin.
And Mike, you spoke very highly about your thoughts on the secondary, so I want to ask you, how's that front seven coming along, particularly since you kind of touched on it, the interior defensive line?
That was an interesting question. So you started with the secondary, so I was ready to answer a secondary question. Then we rolled into the D-line. So front seven on defense, I think it's good. I think we have a lot of bodies that are capable of going out there and helping us. I think the competition has been really, really intense. It's playing out like we hoped it would, which was, we felt like we had to go elevate the whole level of everything, and so you brought in some guys and you wanted to see them compete, and so you see Ray Coney and Noah McHale and Jordan Lockhart out there competing every day, trying to earn opportunities to play this year. And I think because of that, all three of them are elevating every day. I think you got the same thing at end, you got the same thing at D-tackle, and so it's been good. It's been really competitive. I think we're starting to see it rise and the level rise to where we want it to be, and we're getting close to halfway through camp, and it's got to keep going.
We'll go to the back right.
Mike, just curious how you want to kind of handle the rest of camp, when you may want to ramp down, and when you're hoping to get kind of depth chart somewhat simple.
Yeah, the depth chart is, I don't know, she'll put it out at some point and it won't be right, but in terms of like ramping down, we're still in the grind of it. I think this week is the challenging week in my opinion, because the time between the first scrimmage and we'll go in the stadium again on Sunday. We won't scrimmage, but we'll go in the stadium again and do a situational practice, and I think between the two, that's the hardest part of camp, because that's the dead smack in the middle. Nothing seems like it's on the horizon. The game still seems pretty far away, and for two practices, I think we handled it really well, and so we got to keep going the rest of the week. It's a big challenge.
We'll go to the left, Travis.
Yeah, Mike, what's the competition like been at the place kicking, and especially those two guys that you kind of mentioned earlier in the camp? What's that battle like?
Yeah, I think they've been really, really good. I think they've been more consistent. I think we've got range and depth, which has been really good. And so I think both those guys are kicking at a really high level.
To the right, Tony.
Coach, last week I asked Anto Sacco about just putting full pads on and how that kind of raises the elevation of the intensity. And he really said, because we go so hard, it doesn't really ramp it up that much. From your perspective, do you see it that way, and just the way you guys work, that maybe it's just kind of is what it is when the full pads are on?
Yeah, that's the hope. The hope for us is whether we're in helmets, whether we're in uppers, whether we're in full pads, that the pace and the tempo that we're going at never drops, never changes. And I think we have a group that I think understands that. Obviously, year three, certainly the guys that have been with us all the way through have a good feeling for what the expectation and what the standard is. And certainly the new guys, I think, having gone through spring and now into fall camp a little bit, I think understand kind of what the pace and what the tempo is, and we think that for us is an advantage for why we've been able to start well in seasons.
We'll stay to the right, background.
Mike, what do you think on offense, specifically, is a little bit more unique this year than we've seen in the past?
Holman Wiggins is calling plays, and so That's unique because that hasn't happened before. No, I'm joking a little bit. It's going to look to the native eye. It's going to look very, very similar. And so I think we've got a lot of weapons. I think we're trying to figure out creatively how to get the ball to the guys that we think can help impact the game. And I think again at those skill positions, you've got a lot of capable people fighting and scratching for touches. And, I think Holman will do a really, really good job of finding creative ways to make sure we're getting the ball in the right people's hands.
We'll go to the back left next.
I think the coordinators are settling into the new roles, and what's maybe the few biggest steps of growth you've seen from the camp so far?
Yeah, I think both guys are doing a really, really good job. I think, again, there's a lot of organization that goes into camp. It's a little bit different than actually being a game week coordinator. I think when you talk about training camp, you're talking about organizational, you're talking about mentality, setting the right mindset. I don't think being an OC in training camp is what anybody outside of this building actually thinks it is. It's not about calling plays at all in training camp. And so I think both guys are doing a really, really good job. And I think the mindset for both sides of the ball is really coming into what we want it to be.
Back for Aiden Carter.
How would you just kind of assess what you saw from both quarterbacks in the scrimmage, and Marcel in particular, he mentioned not throwing it big the first big part of camp. Just what are you seeing difference-wise from him as far as taking care of the football?
Yeah, I think first of all, he took care of the football better last year than anyone's given him credit for it. So I think first of all, I think that nobody's ever actually asked me that, but a lot of his picks last year that took that number to where it went were end of game, pressing games, trying to catch up. And I think there's times where in those situations you're going to put the ball at risk more naturally. And so, for a large part of the season last year, I thought he protected the ball really well, and even down the stretch. Outside, I thought the worst game was South Carolina. I thought outside of the South Carolina game, a lot of that was pressing type situations. But I think he's taken the step we hoped he would take. I think he's much more comfortable, much more confident, knows the reads, knows what the progressions need to look like. I think his footwork looks cleaner, the ball delivery looks cleaner. And so, again, excited for him. And then I think Brady continues to grow and develop, and, excited for what he's doing and how he's working out there.
We'll wrap up with Alex to your right.
How's Damian continuing to progress throughout this preseason?
Really well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks, guys.